in bed. I thought I was on the battlefield, and then uh, and I thought I had been sliced open with a bayonet because we went on a mission in Vietnam and we ran out of ammo, and I used my bayonet. So when I started having these nightmares, it was just horrific. And the first time it happened, I thought I was on the battlefield, and I thought I was covered with blood, and that I was holding my insides outside, trying to put them back in, and I'm thinking, this isn't gonna work, man. You're
Yeah.
done. This time you're done. And all of a sudden, it's a white light, and my wife is laying on the floor. She'd flicked up the light switch. This is in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the bed. I'm just screaming, right? And we make eye contact, and then all of a sudden I realize I'm not in Vietnam. I'm not on a battlefield. I'm not gutted. I'm not covered with blood. I'm covered with sweat, and the bed is a mess because I avoided myself. The manure and the urine and all that I'm smelling is real.
Yeah. That part was real. Not the
Yeah,
guts
and
being.
so
Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you want to do a kitchen or a pergola? Check out K&H Construction out of Waxahachie. Chris Helms, he's a local guy. Let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is Mr. Rand Timmerman. How are you, sir?
I'm great, BD. Thank you so much for having me on.
So Rand is a Vietnam vet and, a hiker and an author. And I love having vets and their stories because I think we got stories to tell, especially guys like you. Like we were talking offline, Vietnam vets went through a whole different thing than I went through as a vet of OIF, OEF. You guys had a whole different situation that you went through when you got back. This country didn't love you, didn't take care of you, didn't want you. You were a baby killer. You were this, you were that, and you were just somebody trying to survive in the jungles of Southeast Asia. So welcome home, brother. Like I tell all the Vietnam vets, I just wanted to see if you could give a brief bio on yourself.
Sure. So I'm in Syracuse, New York. I grew up in upstate New York in a very rural town. My father was a World War II vet, a Mustang pilot, came home, had me, my brother, and then he got polio and he was paralyzed from the waist down, and we were doomed to poverty of the go to bed hungry every night variety. So I had a pretty rough childhood in a very rural area. In many ways, it was good, but it was hard. It was really hard. And then, so when I got out of high school, I tried college, and I was working 3 jobs, and I wasn't going anywhere. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps. I woke up in a bar in Oswego, New York, on a Monday morning. I had been there. I'd saved my money up so I could spend a weekend, doing what we did. And the owner came in. I'm on the pool table. I just come to, woke up, whatever. He turns the radio on, and they're talking about First Marine Division in Vietnam, taking it to the enemy and talking about body counts and stuff. And I rolled off that pool table and looked at the owner and walked up the door, and I never looked back. So a few weeks later, I'm in the War Memorial, Syracuse, raised my hand, promised took the oath to defend my country against enemies, foreign and domestic, and I got free bus ride, Paris Island.
Wow. How good
And
of them.
8 months later, I'm in a rice paddy in Vietnam, and I'm thinking, you might have made a huge mistake, mister.
Just a little bit. No, it's funny that the service itself started in a bar, and your Marine journey started in a bar as well. I just think that's very Marine of you. That's definitely very Marine of you. So you're in Southeast Asia and in Vietnam, and you're going from all these different places. You're up and down that country. Tell me about that experience there. What you went through there.
Well, I was mostly just in the northernmost province. So with the First Marine Division, our area was west and north of Da Nang. So we went all the way up to the DMZ where Khe Sanh was. A lot of people heard of Khe Sanh. Khe Sanh was a real hellhole. And I spent some time up there. We went all the way over to Laos. It was a grunt. And, it was brutal at times. It was scary as hell. And we did what we had to do. And the lifespan of lieutenants, and I had made my way up to corporal. And the lifespan of lieutenants in Vietnam was not great. Now, they didn't all get killed, but a lot of them did. And they was a tough job. And so the last couple of months, they made me a Mustang lieutenant. So I'm not a real lieutenant. I'm just going to do some of their work. And when it came time for me to leave, they said, well, you can go back to corporal, or you can go stateside and you can go to OCS, be a real lieutenant. So I did that. I went home on leave for 30 days, got drunk every day. I met a girl. We were engaged by the time I left. And I went to OCS, and best thing that could have happened to me, VD, because a lot of the guys, when they came back, you and I were talking about this, they would go on leave. They'd be a corporal or a sergeant, lots of medals, whatever. They did their job. They did a really good job. And then they would get drunk and they would come back a few days late. And then next thing you know, they're private. It was just devastating. Even the Marine Corps didn't really understand the nature of the beast, the problem of the mental health and all that stuff. And then after my career in the Marine Corps, almost all my buddies either died from alcohol, directly or indirectly. I mean, my best friends, he was a little guy. He was a bunker rat. He'd go in the tunnels and stuff. Got wounded 3 times. He always got shot in the buttocks. And I said, don't run down. Out. Get out of And he went up on the Adirondacks in a small town and ended up in a bar. And then he rented the room above the bar. And then he worked in the bar and he died in the bar. 45
Now, I had told you about the kind of, my dad being Vietnam vet, he came back with a habit. And a lot of Vietnam vets came back with a habit. And it's not much different than, when we came back, when those of us of OIF and OEF, when we came back, the drug might have been different. The VA was throwing pills at you left and right, and they're like, oh crap, it's killing them. Let's go ahead and just pull them away after they're already dependent on these pills.
Yeah.
So that was a mess, but it was still addiction. And, we just like veterans before us, we had to try to fill a hole, a giant hole that was in our chest that we couldn't fill. We were trying to fill it. We couldn't fill. That said, you got back from Vietnam and you have dudes that were serving with you, didn't make it. What did you do after the war?
Well, I did OCS, the basic school, and I decided to go into the air wing. So I ended up in the 1st Marine Aircraft Wing in South Carolina, Cherry Point, South Carolina. And when I walked in, I got there on a Sunday, and I walked in, there was a captain there. He was a Mustang captain. He had been my drill sergeant in boot camp at Paris Island. Then he was a gunnery sergeant. They made him a 2nd lieutenant. They made him 1st lieutenant. He was a captain. And he said, I got a bunch of schools here. Do you want to go to a school? I said, well, where are they? And he said, rattling them off. He says, Rhode Island. And I said, well, I've never been to Rhode Island before. What's that? And he says, it's JAG school. Be a legal officer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I said, well, I'll go. Sure. Next thing a day later, I'm in JAG school in Rhode Island with 99 other guys who are all real lawyers. They're all captains. They just got out of law school. They want to party. 20 of us rented a mansion, stayed there. They were drinking. I decided, you know what, I'm going to work at this a little bit, see what happens. So I studied during the week, and I just drank on the weekends with them. I ended up being the platoon honor man. I got the highest score.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It really was funny. So I got back to Cherry Point, and the guy's name was Dale Moe. Dale, I ended up being the legal officer.
Right.
I started doing court martials, and I was defending. Then I got a couple guys off, and then I didn't get them off, but it worked out that way.
Right.
And then so they made me a prosecutor, and I knew what I was going to do when I grew up. I finally had something that I could relate to, and that's what I ended up doing. I stayed in another couple more years, and I thought I was going to go back to Vietnam. Turned out he was my guardian too. He kept sending me down to Puerto Rico, and I'd be number 1 on the list to go back to Vietnam. I go down to Puerto Rico, do trials for 30 days because we had Roosevelt Roads. There's a Navy base there with the head Marines.
Yes. And
then I would come back and I go, Dale, I'm not at the top anymore. He said, what's going on? He said, I'm sending you down there so you don't go back to Vietnam because you get your ass killed. He knew I wouldn't probably never make it. I would have been a forward observer. You know, it was
Oh,
perfect for
yeah.
them. Yeah. So anyway, I had a career, and then I got out of the Marine. I got married while I was in the Marine Corps and had some kids and stuff. When I went back to Syracuse and ended up going to college, got my degree, got my law degree, and I had a great career for 40 years. But I also had an alcohol problem.
Yeah. No, you got into lawyering, and I mean that's just you think about it. You were a corporal, doing your thing in Vietnam out in the rice paddies, to end up being a JAG officer, being a, sitting there defending and prosecuting and all the stuff that happened. Like it's completely two very different life. Like it's a whole different chapter of
Yep.
life. You go from rifleman to lawyer. I mean, it's fascinating that you made those transitions, but then you got out and you started making a life for yourself.
Yeah,
But you had to fill the void, it sounds like.
yeah, I got the motorcycle. I had been a machine gunner on a helicopter for a period of time. That was a hell of a deal. I mean, it was terrifying at times, but I'll tell you what, flying around on a helicopter with a machine gun is a blast in many ways. It's the adrenaline rush, and so I got a motorcycle, so I had to have something, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brother was in the Army. He was mostly at Chulai. He was a machine gunner on a helicopter for a
Mhm.
period of time too. They didn't make you do that too long because that was a real tough job. But
Yeah.
anyway, he came back, and our mother's best friend, Edie, who was divorced with 7 kids, is there. And my brother comes back. The next thing I know, they're riding around in a convertible, going line dancing, and my brother married her. She was 14 years older than him. So he had an instant family. And then
Wow.
he ended up with, and he became a commercial pilot, mostly doing freight. He never did passengers. We did freight. He was a really good pilot. My dad was a pilot, right, from the
Mhm.
Mustang.
Yeah.
And so they had ended up with 27 grandkids, 27 great grandkids. Moved to
Wow.
Utah. He became a bishop in the Mormon church. My brother always believed in God. I didn't, from the time I was, conscious pretty much. I just never got the God thing. And in Vietnam, that first battle, I was like, guys were crying for their mothers. Some of them, when they get, when you're fatally wounded, some guys just break down like
Yeah.
babies crying for their mother. Some guys are trying to make, quick contracts with the big guy, get me out of this, and I'll never, whatever. And I'm like, screw you, man. If this is
Wow.
your idea, I don't want anything to do with you. So I had no spirituality, none.
Mhm.
And then I'm accomplishing things, I think I'm running the world basically, right? If you don't
Right.
believe in a higher power, I heard you and Tom Sawyer talking today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I listened into that podcast, so I have an idea where you were at too,
Mhm.
spiritually, right?
Yeah. No,
I was
I didn't see God when I was there, brother. I didn't
No, I know.
like I couldn't imagine a God that could do that. I didn't imagine a God that could let that happen. It
Right.
was a very dark. I just didn't feel him. I didn't see him. I didn't think he was there. So and I didn't go through. I mean, I wasn't a Marine rifleman in Vietnam. I definitely wasn't that. So I mean, you lost your faith if you had any, even the slightest bit. It was gone after Vietnam. Huh?
It was totally gone. Well, right from the very beginning. The first night I was in Vietnam, I had gotten my ammo, all my gear, and I was in a transition tent, and there was a bunch of guys in there, just came out of the field. They're going home, right? There's a guy 40 feet from me. He started to look at his mail because we got our mail in a big packet. We only got it like once a month.
Mhm.
He's going home the next day. He opens up that packet of mail, looks for one letter, finds it, opens it, reads it, picks up his pistol, and blew his brains out. And the letter said, "Dear John, I don't know how to tell you this, but I met another guy and we just got married."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was that kind of trauma amongst all the rest of it, that made it very difficult when we came back. And like you said before, there was no the only time I ever went to the VA, I was 67 years old and I was in handcuffs and I ended up in the psych ward because I had suicidal ideation so bad that they had to protect me from myself.
How did
So
you how did you manage to create this life, man, with the trauma that you had, and I didn't have anywhere near your trauma, but I know trauma and I understand how it messes with you and how the demons get in your ears and that kind of stuff. How did you manage to create 40-year profession as a legal guy without addressing the stuff, the absolute horror that you went through in Vietnam?
Well, that's a good question. I did have a lot of the nightmares hit me a couple years after I came back, and they were horrific. And I would wake up in bed. I didn't know I was in bed. I thought I was on the battlefield, and I thought I had been sliced open with a bayonet because we went on a mission in Vietnam and we ran out of ammo, and I used my bayonet. So when I started having these nightmares, it was just horrific. And the first time it happened, I thought I was on the battlefield. I thought I was covered with blood and that I was I was holding my insides outside, trying to put them back in. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to work, Rand. You're done.
Yeah.
This time you're done. And all of a sudden, it's a white light, and my wife is laying on the floor. She'd flicked up the light switch. This is in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the bed. I'm just screaming, right? And we make eye contact. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm not in Vietnam. I'm not on a battlefield. I'm not gutted. I'm not covered with blood. I'm covered with sweat. And the bed is a mess because I have voided myself. The manure and the urine and all that I'm smelling is real.
Yeah, that part was real. Not
Yeah.
that
And so, the first time I drank at 13, I kind of knew it was going to be a problem because I liked it so much.
yeah.
So I never did anything else consciously, and but I would drink late at night to mask it, and I worked really hard because I didn't want to be poor again. That was a good resentment to have, poverty.
Yeah, poverty will make you do things.
Yeah, but so what happened was, over the year, I had a great legal career. I don't have any problems. I didn't drink on the job, but I would drink late at night to try to avoid some of that. I drank too much on the weekends sometimes and stuff like that. But what happened for me was when I got in my late 50s, early 60s, kids are all growing up. They've gone to college, their lives. And
Then you had to everything went quiet. And now you
I
had to
went
deal
quiet. I can't ride the motorcycle that much anymore. It's not a good idea when you got the shakes,
Yeah.
And then I tried to commit suicide. Well, I thought about it. I put the pistol in my mouth at one point, but luckily I wasn't in a blackout, but it just got bad. We know today that alcoholics, we metabolize alcohol differently than normal people. We create acetone and their systems wash that out. Ours, it builds up, and that's where you get that crazy feeling. You just can't, you got to drink. You have no choice. And I didn't have a spiritual power either. None. So I was screwed. But I ended up going into a recovery program at 65, and I'm still in it to this day. And I've been sober now 12 years, and I help guys every day. I go to meetings, hang out with them, do some book work,
Dude, like that's an accomplishment that I can't even. I had a problem with that bottle too, and I think that I inherited that problem from the bottle, and eventually what I noticed was that when I drank heavy, I just became a blubbering idiot, and all it did was take me into a deeper and deeper hole. So it didn't matter. Like it might have been like I may have felt a little bit of joy for a minute, but eventually it would catch up. Things would catch up, and I would just become a blubbering fool. And it was just not well. How did your wife deal with this?
Well, alcoholics tend to have problems with relationships. The mother of my children, she actually remarried and left and went to Oregon, and the kids were preteen and a couple of teenagers. So they came and lived with me, and I was really busy. So I didn't drink much, but I did drink at night a lot. After everything was done, the kids were in bed. I guzzle for half an hour, go to bed,
Bam, bam, bam,
bam, bam, bam, get up at 5 o'clock, go to work, take the kids to school, go to work, do whatever. And so I was really busy. So that saved me for a long, long time. But then, like you said, and now the kids are gone, the wives are gone. And I'm by myself pretty much, and it just took over. It really decimated me. But I did get into a really good recovery program. And so when my brother's wife died, Edie, now he's in Utah. I had never been to his house in 40 years because I lived in New York. They would come east every year for a week and we'd hang out and stuff. And my younger brother and I would drink and make fun of my brother, the bishop. Because he was so boring, and his name is Ron, and he's the one I hiked the trail with. So when Edie died, and Ron never had a drinking problem, and he didn't really have a spiritual problem except the grief from her death, leaving him 27 grandchildren and 27 great grandchildren. And so I went out to see him because I could kind of tell on the phone he wasn't doing that great. And we went hiking in the desert, and luckily we were both pretty good shape. I ran 26 marathons and did a lot of cross country skiing, and Ronnie hiked all over Utah. And so we had kind of a good base. And of course, I've been sober at that point. I'd been sober 4 years. And I asked him, "What are you going to do?" He says, I'm going to get on a bus and go to Springer Mountain, Georgia, and start walking the Appalachian Trail. And I said, that's crazy, man. I'm 72. He's 71.
I know.
Yeah. I had done a fair amount of hiking in the Smoky Mountains. It's not a joke. I mean, it's a day hike is strenuous, to say the least. Anyway,
I've seen like people who were in their 40s try to do that trip and not make it. So you're in your 70s talking about doing this trip. I mean, so you and your brother just kind of, well, let's just do it. Let's go hike the Appalachian Trail. What happened there?
Well, the Appalachian Trail is 2,200 miles, 2,190 to be precise. It goes from Springer Mountain, Georgia, to Katahdin Mountain in Maine. Goes over 600 mountains, 100,000 feet of elevation changes. That's 500,000, right? Feet elevations up and down. And every year, about 3 million people hike on some part of it, but about 2,500 to 3,000 try to do the whole thing. 17% make it. That's about 450, 500 people.
Wow.
And we did not see anybody out there in their 70s. Don't wait until you're 70. I'm telling you, just if you think you want to do that, you need, like you said, prime age is probably late 30s, early 40s, 50s, because you still got all your strength, you got good endurance and everything. But
yeah, I would die. So I'll look at the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachian. I'll look at it on Google Images, but maybe I'll go see it. But I'm definitely not gonna hide. I wouldn't make it. Definitely don't have that kind of stamina. But 72-year-old, you get up there with your brother, and I know that, and I haven't seen them personally, but I know that they're probably magical to see. I know that there's connections that you can make there. And it sounds like during that journey you did. So talk to me about that journey with your brother.
Okay. Yeah, we did for sure. You know, we left on March 22nd. It was snowing. We had 2 vehicles. That kind of made it a little bit easier for us. There are roads going across the Appalachian Trail every 10, 15 miles or so for a lot of it. So we would wear day packs and we would leapfrog. We almost every night were on the trail, right? We'd park there. I like to brag. I slept in a tent every night. Well, I did, but my truck was right next to me.
Yeah.
So my brother would leave in the morning. He'd go drive around and get up to the next road, go up to the top, get on the trail. He would walk south and I would go north. And then we would meet in the middle. And then I would go, by the time usually I got to where he was parked, he would get my truck and come back around. We just stay there.
Oh, you were leapfrogging.
We did that most of the time. There's sections like the Priest and in the Smoky Mountains. There's 2 35-mile sections. You got to wear a full pack. But we averaged 11 miles a day. We hiked from 7 in the morning till 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
11 miles a day?
Yeah, which is hard. I mean, in the mountains, if you can do 1.5 miles an hour, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I would die.
Yeah. And we met a lot of younger people there. Ronnie hiked it like he was on a mission. Just kind of head down, march. I had my iPhone. I was more about, I'm never going to come this way again. I am going to enjoy this one way or another.
You were taking it in.
I was taking it in. Yeah, I was watching for the critters. I took a lot of pictures. Ronnie took hardly any pictures. So when we got all done, he had a journal, I had a journal. I kind of put them together. I had 5,000 pictures, and I thought, you know what, I could do a book about this. And then so I wrote a book about it and used Ronnie's journal because he was really good about it. We were here, we walked this far, 11.2 miles. We stayed here, up and down this many elevations. I love my family. I was like putting in all the trail names and the things that I saw, the funny things that happened, and there was quite a few. One day in June 21st, 2018, we were just getting into Virginia. We're going up a mountain called Hogback Mountain. Okay.
Back mountain. Oh.
Hogback Mountain. And I hear a noise. Because I leave before anybody else, usually I'd be alone a lot of the time, especially early in the morning. And I hear people coming up behind me. So I turn around and look, and there's a guy by the name of Growler. He looks like Daniel Boone. He's a great big, 30-ish guy, built like a mountain, big beard and everything. And he had a lady with him, pretty little lady. And then there was another lady with him, and then they don't have any clothes on.
What?
What?
Wait, there's some missing.
They don't have any clothes on. And Growler looks at me and he says, "Well, Rand, didn't you get the memo?" I said, "I guess not." He says, "It's Naked Day on the Appalachian Trail." I said, "Well, I'm going to do everybody a favor and leave mine on."
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Definitely. No,
so that's one thing. So then I just pull over because they're going to go a little bit faster than me. I have an artificial knee. My right leg is a half inch shorter than my other, so I limp. I like to brag. I was the limpiest man that ever walked on the Appalachian Trail.
72, your knee is replaced, your one leg is shorter, and you decide to hike the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, I didn't go look for myself. I didn't. I went there for my brother.
So you went there for your brother, and it's not the first time in your life where you did things for your brothers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this time you got to do it for your brother.
Yeah,
and
he did it for me. He did it for me too, of course. We're both pets.
I know. You did this. So you wrote this book, and tell me, like, what kind of stuff did you put in this book?
Well, I've told a lot of stories. There's a lot of funny things that happened. A lot of critters, bears. There's pictures of bears and snakes and all kinds of stuff. And I ended up every other chapter writing about how I got sober, because I went through a 12-step program. And I had a really good, I struggled in my first 3 years and I couldn't stay sober in the program. It's an anonymous program, involves alcoholics, but we got to keep it anonymous. So I'm being a little bit, but anyway, so I got a guy decided to help me. And I just said, first thing he said to me, because he had spent the day with me in the emergency room, he took me there. Wow. And I've been on a air vodka vacation for few days. I like to call them vacations. All I did was drink and breathe and pass out. That was basically it, right? You can relate to that, right?
I understand that. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. And we get out, he gets me out of detox, and we go to a meeting, and he says, "Rand, you need to pray to," afterwards we're by ourselves. He said, "You need to pray to that God you don't believe in." And I'm looking at him like, "Billy, I don't." And he goes, "Or you will get drunk again." And I started crying. I'm 68 years old. And I can't stop drinking. It's a kind of disgusting, but I was powerless over it. And I just said, "I'll do whatever the heck you tell me to do." And he taught me how to pray. And I've been doing it every day the way he taught me. And it's been over 11 years now. But it wasn't easy. I had some things I had to do, and I wrote about it in a book. I talk about how I got allergic to alcohol and what it did to me, right? What it was like. What happened? Well, then I talk about how Billy took me through the steps and what we did, the work I had to do, and how I developed a relationship with a higher power.
After all these years, and after all the things that you went through, and all that, it was God.
It was God.
It was God. It was in the way that you have come to Him, and the way that you understand it, it was God.
Yep.
And that's how you got through. That's where you found purpose, and along the Appalachian Trail.
That's right. That's right. And I almost got killed on the Appalachian Trail. My brother had some really tough times there too. And he had a revelation. There's a picture in the book of, there was a day where it was just dark. I mean, I felt like you could almost use a flashlight in the middle of the day. And then Ronnie it was Father's Day in 2018, and our dad had died. And then, of course, Edie he was still dealing with her loss and everything, not feeling great. And he came around the corner, and there's a like a big circle of light right in the forest, and in the center of it, it looks like there's a person there, and it scared my brother. But he ended up taking a picture of it. He thought like maybe God was going to take him away or something, and then he sort of felt like Edie was telling him, Ronnie, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Your dad's okay. I'm okay. We're good. We're together now. It's okay. You can do this. You'll be fine. And it changed it for him. That's the only sunshine we saw. What it had to be was one ray came down through the clouds at that moment, and then we never saw any more sunlight that day. None, zero. So that was special for him. I was in the Smoky Mountains, and I pitched my tent in a really bad spot, and the winds came up and felt like the tent was going to blow right off the mountain. I thought it was done. I have never been so scared when nobody was shooting at me. When people are shooting at you, that's a whole different level.
Yeah, that's a different level. But I mean, it's still scary.
Yeah.
And I hope that people will go and read this book, because it sounds like, I mean, journeys like yours are the most fulfilling thing, because you come out of such an ugly, what I call the tunnel. I called it the tunnel. For so many years, I went through that tunnel. And then finally, I said, God, just please fix me, fix my marriage, fix my life. And I swear I will never turn from you again. And he has. He told me, be kind. I said, okay. And I followed that. And he has opened up doors that I could never have imagined. And this little podcasting, I mean, getting to know so many cool people that I would have probably never met and known their stories, and someone like you and your story. So I'm grateful that you came on. I'm real thankful, my friend. Now people can just get your book at your website that I'm scrolling.
Yeah, randtimmerman.com. I just got the links to Amazon and other books, other book vendors, and there's some videos on there and a bunch of stuff they can look at. And if they go on, like I said, buy Amazon, if they just push on that, they don't have to buy it, but everything will show up, and then they can read about it and decide what they want to do. There's 3 different versions. The paperback, the big one, has 500 colored pictures in it, and the text is the same in all of them. And then there's a hardcover that's pretty expensive too. And then there's a smaller one, 6x9, that always has 50 black and whites. But anyway, they can
get the pictures. Get the pictures, folks. You got to get the pictures. I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine those are amazing pictures. Don't give up, brother. Don't ever give up.
No.
I love that you're going through this journey, and that at such a late stage, and you're on the other side of the tunnel. And I'm so grateful, brother, because I'm so glad you're here. Can you stick around real quick after the show?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.